You know, Yana comes to the table very prepared. And she brought in, I think, where 5G is concerned. I have a little bit of kind of synopsis here on 5G is included in this. But we're going to be talking about some things now that are, well, quite frankly, they should be alarming to the community. However, with that being said, let us bear in mind that we serve the most powerful creator of everything. And if he was the one who created the heavens and the earth, there is nothing that's going to happen that is outside the scope of what he understands and what he sees. You know, I have to tell you, I was in prayer a couple days ago, and I was just greatly weeping in my spirit. And I had told some people a couple of days before that, you know, that Yah carries every tear in his hand, you know. And so then he showed me, I carry every one of your tears in my hand. And he showed me his hand, but it had a hole in it. And I realized at that point, yeah, maybe I have something to be sorry about, but he had holes in his hands. And, you know, when we consider these things, and we consider what's coming, and all of these things are coming quickly. Some of you who have seen some of my other videos know that I've kind of talked about a timeline that's predicated upon the sign in the heaven that was given on September 23rd of 2017, which, by the way, that year 2017 was a natural culmination of the prophecies in Daniel 9. And of course, one of the great interpreters of Daniel 9 was Sir Isaac Newton. And he is the one who said, look, 925, you know, really, we've had a very short-sighted vision of Daniel 9 in this country, because people have taken what I would say is a bad English translation, and they've taken it out of context, and then they start waxing eloquent about all kinds of extrapolated stuff. And people want to believe that stuff. And, like, I'll give you an example, okay? So Daniel 9:24 talks about 70 weeks. 70 weeks are appointed for you in the holy city, right? And then you get into Daniel 9:25, and it says, from the time of the edict to go and rebuild Jerusalem to the coming of Mashiach shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. Well, everybody immediately goes, well, 7 plus 62, that's 69. That's 1 week short of 70. Where's the 70th week? But there's a word for 69 in Hebrew. If they wanted to say 69 weeks, they would have said 69 weeks. But instead, you have two statements, 7 weeks, comma, 62 weeks. Isaac Newton is the one who said that's two prophecies. Two prophecies of the advent of Mashiach. Why? Because Genesis 1 predicts two advents of Mashiach. Genesis 1:1 predicts the two advents of Mashiach. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Aleph Tav appears twice in Genesis 1:1. The word et, the Aleph Tav. And Mashiach tells us in Kizeon, I am the Aleph Tav. I am the Aleph Tav, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. And so here it is, predicted, that at the end of the 4th millennium, we would see the Aleph Tav. And at the end of the 6th millennium, we would see the Aleph Tav, but this time marked with the nail, the Vav. So Isaac Newton said, well, look, Daniel 9:25 also gives us a dual prophecy. 7 weeks, which is 49 days. A day equal to a year is 49 years. Takes us to 2017 from the liberation of Jerusalem, from the termination of Jerusalem's status as no man's zone. And in 2017, people were saying, well, I'm expecting the rapture. Or I'm expecting the second coming of Christ to appear in the heavens. But that's not what was said in Matthew 24. He said, when this happens, you will see the sign of the coming of the Son of Man. The sign of the coming of the Son of Man. And I believe we have seen that sign. There were some people out there, I think Scott Clark is his name, who was predicting the rapture. But, even as, I know some of you might not like the discussion of the rapture, but there are some people who say, well, look, I'm a pre-trib rapture, I'm a post-trib rapture. Some guys are pan-trib rapture. It'll all pan out in the end. But the case is this, though, is that when you're talking about this prophecy, Scott Clark does make a brilliant case for the fact that that sign in the heavens was complete. The Revelation 12 sign in the heavens was complete and had never been seen before. Something similar had been seen the year of the birth of the Mashiach, but it was not Jupiter exiting the womb, it was Venus. There's a differentiation there. Now people say, well, you shouldn't be talking about that, Stephen. Well, in Genesis 1:14 it says, I have given you the stars, the sun, and the moon for signs, right? For signs, for appointed feasts, for Moedim, for days and for years. And so you're not supposed to be sitting up there, well, what sign are you? Well, I'm the 13th sign of the zodiac. What's that? Schizophrenic. You're not supposed to be doing that kind of stuff. But it is appropriate to look in the heavens for these positioning of constellations and so forth, right? It's very clear in the gospel, the Magi looked to the Star of Bethlehem. So we see these kinds of things. Now, when we see these kinds of things, we look in the world and we say, okay, is there signs in the world that we are coming to the culmination of the age? And I believe we are. And this is what we're going to see in GAIA and Trans-humanism. Now, I use the term GAIA. As you know, GAIA is, in my opinion, a pagan word. Somebody did me the favor of showing me one of my books, Behold a Pale Green Horse, that I wrote on exposing what I call ecofascism. And it was really exposing the fraud of the global warming movement. It's an extensive book. I have 465 citations in the book, including the peer-reviewed study of Lloyd Monkton, who is a friend of mine, who gave me permission to publish his study. And in that study, it shows that the assumptions of the IPCC in its fourth assessment were off by 5,000%. 5,000%. Now, they have since had to come out and admit that they were completely 100% wrong, because science has just admitted that we're going into a significant global cooling period. It could be a 350-year ice age. Well, now imagine if they had succeeded in blotting out the sun entirely with their plans, which have included chemtrails. Imagine if they had succeeded in doing this. It would be, 10, 20 degrees colder than what it's normally going to be. Because these people think that they have permission to alter the weather in accordance with the plans of Yah. So what we see is, we see this rise of this faith in Gaia, Mother Earth. Now, there was an Ark of the Covenant created in 1981 for Gaia. Prince Philip, who said, if I die, I want to come back as a virus and kill every human being on earth. He formed the Church of Euthanasia. One of the great corruptors of the 20th century, in my opinion, was Bertrand Russell. Now, Bertrand Russell is the one who advised Chamberlain to capitulate to Adolf Hitler. And then in 1953, Bertrand Russell wrote a book called The Impact of Science on Society. And in this book, he said, there's too many people on Earth. Well, how many people do you think should be here, Bertrand? 150 million. Now, at that time, there was about 2.5 billion people on Earth. So he wanted to wipe out 2.475 billion people. Since then, the number has relaxed a little bit. The Georgia Guidestones say 500 million. So right now, that's about a 6.7 billion person genocide that's being proposed by these so-called elitists. And Bertrand Russell in this book said, here's what we do. Any country that doesn't fall, first of all, he wanted to completely depopulate the continent of Africa. Now, a lot of you may have heard about the Black Hebrew movement, right? And I know some of you who are familiar with the Black Hebrew movement have already been stung by it because they call you a bunch of names. But I can tell you that the Black Hebrew movement does have reality. There's absolutely no question that the tribe of Dan populated the areas of Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire. There's no question that the tribe of Judah came down through the Upper Nile and as far south as the Republic of South Africa. In my mind, there's little question in my mind that the Ethiopian people, the Eritrean people, and the Somalis are almost certainly of the house of Shimon and Yemen. You remember, we have this country, Yemen, right? Yemen. And the Saudis are currently engaged in a genocide there. That is a crime against humanity in the most serious way, about which we're doing nothing. In fact, we're arming, aiding, and abetting it. But if you look in Scripture, you will see that Shimon was given the south, right? The Negev. Shimon was given the Negev. How far south? All the way down to the bottom of the Red Sea. And his firstborn son, Yemen. So who do you think is living in Yemen? It's the tribe of Shimon. We also know that all of the tribes of the Northern Kingdom also came west. Dan was mainly doing the shipping, Asher was doing the port management, Zebulun was doing the work, and Issachar was doing the work. All of those tribes populated northern Africa in ports that had been established by the sons of Zerah, who was the firstborn son of Judah. So you see that you can see that the whole of the house of Israel has moved into Africa. And for Bertrand Russell to say we're going to obliterate Africa was to say I want 100% genocide against the house of Israel. He had no knowledge about that, Mr. Smarty Pants. He had no knowledge about that. He just wanted to do it. And he said, any country that doesn't comply with our population guidelines, starve them. Now, this protocol that he laid out on the impact of science and society in 1953 is the guiding manual for the New World Order this very moment, whose intention is to starve every country that doesn't meet its population requirements. And if the starvation doesn't work, nuke them. Now, into this environment comes artificial intelligence. Now, I love the people in artificial intelligence. You know, they think that their world is the only world. I meet the techies all the time. My daughter worked at Microsoft for a while. She did all the blogs for Windows 10. I said, you're blogging for Windows 10? Tell me how this stupid thing works. I'm not interested in hearing about Cortana. Get her out of here. I don't want Cortana in my house at all. Anyway, she would just look at me like, Dad, just click here. See, it's all right there. Oh, okay. But the techies, they get together and they hang out in their rooms. They got their big dual screens, it's not enough to have one screen. And you can't just have the 23-inch monitor. No, you have to have the dual Samsung 32s or 36s. I can put up 24 pages, 8.5 by 11. I mean, you try to tell me that doesn't psych you out? I mean, come on. It's going to do something to you. But they sit there, okay, look, if we do this, I can enhance the speed on that. And then if I, join this software protocol to that software protocol, we can fix this. And then all of a sudden, you'll be able to use this functionality that we created last year at twice the speed you did before. So what? So, hello, so what? What about friendship? You know, when I first went into Russia, I loved going into Russia because they didn't have any of that stuff. You know what they call a trap? You know how you can tell when it's rush hour in Russia? All the sidewalks are crammed, right? They have a saying in Russia, how many Russians can you get on the tram? One more, right? I'll tell you, it's pretty funny. But those people, they had nothing, right? I mean, you walk into what socialism really looks like. The young people, we want a socialist environment. Why do you want a socialist environment? So that I can get my health care paid for free, and I can get my college paid for free. Yeah, I hate to break the news to you, nothing's free. You will pay in one way or the other. So I get into this Russian community that was still showing evidence of the Soviet Union. And I look at this apartment building. Oh, here's a beautiful apartment building. And I'm figuring, about 200 apartments maybe. No, 1,000 apartments. So you walk in. You go, you come to the door. There's absolutely zero landscaping around the building because nobody's doing any of that. Park your car where you want, whatever. Come to the door, door's ratty, but it closes and seals. You open up the door, there may or may not be a light bulb in there. Usually if the light bulb's functioning, somebody steals it. It was painted 25 years ago maybe, they're not painting it again. The elevator may or may not work. If it does work, it takes a dime, it'll only hold 2 people, and you're taking your life in your hands. You could be in there 2-3 hours if something goes wrong. So you say, well, I'll take the steps. Okay, you think there's some kind of a zoning regulation for steps and those things? No, put up something, slap some steps up there. There's not one of them that's the same size, right? And you have to walk up 14 this flight and 14 to get to floor 2. But your friend might be living on floor 10. So that's 20 full flights of stairs. They're totally uneven with no light. So then you get to the apartment. Knock, knock, knock. Door is beautiful because this is his apartment or her apartment. So they beautified the door. Door is beautiful. Step inside, shoes come off. You don't take a second step with the shoes on. But here you are. Here's the entryway, 4x4. Here's the bathroom, 4x4. Here's the kitchen, 4x4. Walk through the doorway and enter the rest of the apartment, which is about 6 feet wide, 12 feet long, and then you have the balcony. And that room that you're in, well, that's the living room, that's the bedroom, that's the dining room, that's the second bedroom, that's the whatever. And every possession that they have is in this shelf that sits right there. From each according to his ability, to each according to his need. And it's not your opinion of what you need, it's somebody else's opinion of what you need. And they don't think you need much. So any of these people who spend all their time locked in a computer room going, let's process this next level of code. Now we're going to come up with transhumanism. I got to love Ray Kurzweil. Ray Kurzweil, he developed a great keyboard in the 1980s. In fact, his 88-key Kurzweil keyboard was used by all the major symphony orchestras throughout the world instead of a grand piano. Because they could dial in the, what's it called now? The thing they use in the Nutcracker, I forget what they call it now. Anyway, you could dial in other sounds and use it. And so it was used in a lot of symphony orchestras. But Kurzweil went on to become an advisor for Google. And he is the one that coined the term singularity, self-awareness in computers. Singularity. And he believes, I'm going to transfer all of my intellectual capability, all of my memories, all of my thoughts, all of the way I think, into this cyborg. And then I can live forever. Because he thinks that his memories and the way he thinks is his soul. Now, this level of ignorance is really, in my opinion, incomprehensible. Because let me share with you why. First of all, the computing that's going to be available here in 2 years is going to be thinking at a rate 1,000 trillion times faster than a human being. So he puts his memories into this cyborg that's thinking 1,000 trillion times faster than he did. And the cyborg is looking at this going, I've got this memory here of some stupid creature that is absolutely irrelevant to anything. Erase. You know, and it'll be that fast, right? In the meantime, his soul is still languishing, you know, maybe in orbit around Pluto. Who knows? Let's leave the Star Trek jokes out of this thing, okay? All right, so Gaia and transhumanism. So I've taken this term Gaia that they use for Mother Earth, and I'm using it to describe general artificial intelligence applied. Okay, so let's get into this slide here. Okay, so artificial general intelligence, what's the difference? AI is specific stuff. AI, my car, right, has AI capability. It'll turn on the wipers when it spots rain on the windshield. It'll turn on the headlights when the light meter says it's too dark, right? I got a backup camera that kicks in when I put it in reverse, you know, this kind of thing. That's AI in its application, but AGI is something else. AGI is general intelligence. That is to say, where you have broad-based intelligence in a single entity, something that is designed to think like a human being. Now, they don't want to talk about it, but Facebook launched 2 bots. First, Microsoft launched a bot. And they said, let's see how this is going to do. We'll launch this bot, and then we'll let people talk to it, and then let's see how this bot comes out in 24 hours. We'll let it self-learn by the people it talks to. So they did this. And by the following morning, they had the most foul-mouthed, racist bot you could possibly imagine. And so Microsoft had to cancel that whole project. They shut it down and said, look, we can't allow this thing to talk to anybody. And you know, it's like giving a minor bird to a pirate, right? You know what the minor bird's going to be saying later, right? So Facebook says, okay, we'll try something a little more sophisticated. We're going to launch 2 bots. We'll let them talk to each other. So they launched the bots and let them talk to each other. And by the following morning, they had created a language that no one could read. That fast. That fast. Now, this is just not even using nanotechnology. Nanotechnology is almost 10 years old now. They have 7 levels of technology beyond nanotechnology now. 7 levels. Where you're talking about using subatomic particles for delivering binary information. And the speed is, every time you get to a smaller particle, the speed moves up logarithmically. In fact, beyond logarithmically. And so, when you're talking about Moore's Law applied to transistors, but we're well past Moore's Law now, okay? So here's Moore's Law, exponential growth in computing. Moore's Law is talking about the number of transistors. And if you recall, we were talking about this the other night, talking about music, the frequency 432 hertz, which is a bit of a discrepancy. But nonetheless, the thinking was, and it came from Pythagoras, who said the note C has at its root the frequency of 1. Octave above 2, octave above 4, octave above 8, octave above 16, then 32, 64, 128, 256. For those of you who remember the computer generation in the 90s, you remember when we went from a 64K modem on a twisted pair of copper? Break out the shotgun, you're gone. To the 128K modem. Now we have modems we're unhappy with at 5.5 gigabits. That's way too slow, right? But it's moved up in this logarithmic pattern. 256 megabyte. You remember these? 512 megabyte? All these numbers that we went through, but they were all based on those gates. That's similar to the note C, the musical note C. The musical note F sharp, interesting enough, has the frequencies 45, 90, 180, 360, 720. Like the angles, right? That's in the note F sharp. Okay, but Moore's law says, okay, we're going to talk about this exponential growth in transistors. But what we found was we had this Moore's law applying to other things. The speed of computing, how fast the modem would function, how much storage you would have, right? Remember the old RAM cache? I remember being involved in computers when they introduced the first hard drive. Before then, we had what we called the Trash 80, right? Radio Shack TRS 80, the Trash 80. Took 5-inch floppy disks. The same technology that our ICBMs currently work on. 5-inch, 5.5-inch floppies. Then all of a sudden, hard drive is introduced. The hard drive is what? 1 megabyte. Whoa, 1 million bytes of information. That's the same amount of information that NASA claimed they used when they put us on the moon. Of course, that was just really Stanley Kubrick's studio, but that's no. Anyway, we went from there to a 10 megabyte hard drive. Then eventually we get to 1 gigabyte. Now what are we dealing with? Terabytes, right? Terabytes. All of this is expanded on Moore's law. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Yeah. Keck's law on fiber optic capacity. This is the number of bits per second that can be sent down an optical fiber increases exponentially faster than Moore's law. Now that doesn't surprise me. I mean, I was involved with some technology in the 90s where we were trying to develop, I was involved with 2 different technologies in the 90s. One was for optical switching, for telecommunications, optical switching. And the other was to provide bandwidth using light. And so we had found these guys in Germany who had developed a laser protocol that where basically you have a tube like this, and it has 4 projectors in it because you have to have redundancy. And then it would shoot, and then up to 5 miles away you had another receptor that would pick up these laser lights, and it had 4 receptacles and 4 beams that would shoot back. And the capability was it was obscene, the kind of bandwidth that was capable of being carried in these devices. And they would operate in what? Infrared space. Now, you have to keep in mind, when we talk about 5G, I was intimately involved with the development of CDMA, the development of GSM systems, the old, what they call 2 gig systems, the 2G systems. And so I had a pretty good idea how that protocol worked. And the difficulty is that when you have the lower frequencies, like you guys remember the old police band or even CB, when you broadcast on that radio frequency will go right around a building, go over a building, go down through valleys. It'll go around stuff, no problem. But the higher the frequency gets, when you get into what's called narrowband, you have to have more line of sight. By the time you get into the frequencies they're talking about in 5G, it absolutely has to be line of sight. One device has to see the next. And there's short-range bursts. And this is why when they're talking about deploying 5G, when AT&T was talking about developing its first wireless system, they wanted to put 2G devices on everybody's home. So they'd say, we're coming over to your home, we're going to put the pack, like your cable box on the outside, we're going to put a pack on your home so you have wireless. What they weren't telling you is that that's also feeding all of your neighbors. Okay? Same thing with 5G. They're going to come to your house and say, look, we want to put 5G here. Oh, you can't put it in my house. Okay, we'll just put it right out here on the telephone pole in front of your house. Either way, the connectivity is going to be the same, and they're going to connect you house by house, pole by pole, because it has to be a very short-range deal in order to make it all communicate. So it has to be a full saturation. You won't be seeing all the big microwave towers anymore because it's going to be completely proliferated throughout your entire neighborhood. Like the smart meter. For all we know, the smart meter may be carrying 5G technology, okay? Anyway, we see that fiber optic bandwidth is expanding, it's exploding. In fact, the people at Comcast said next year, internet speeds increase by 1,000%. Next year, right? So here's our famous verse out of Daniel 12, and here at the end it says, right? Oh, Daniel, shut up the words. and seal the Sefer. Now, some people believe, I think Eric Bissell is one of them, that this is when Babylonian Hebrew came in to shut up and seal what was actually said in the Paleo-Hebrew. And the Paleo-Hebrew, of course, is pictographs. If you understand Paleo-Hebrew, you can understand the meaning of a word immediately, because you can pick out the word through the pictograph and determine what is said, okay? But it says here, shut up this Sefer and seal the Sefer even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. Well, let's talk about Buckminster Fuller. How many people know the name Buckminster Fuller? He's one of my favorite guys in history, R. Buckminster Fuller. He's the guy that developed and designed the geodesic dome. You know, you guys have seen geodesic domes. If somebody wants to go build a house somewhere, and he can do it outside of zoning laws, so he puts up a geodesic dome. They're quite efficient, very effective, and very easy to build. But he said, look, he created the knowledge doubling curve, and he noticed that until 1900, human knowledge doubled approximately every century, but by the end of World War II, knowledge was doubling every 25 years. It's pretty quick. Today, things are not as simple, as different types of knowledge have different rates of growth, of course. And for example, nanotechnology knowledge is doubling every 2 years. That's nanotechnology. That's 7 generations back. And he says clinical knowledge every 18 months. Of course, the medical profession is behind. Government knowledge is still every 25 years. But on the average, human knowledge is doubling every 13 months. According to IBM, the build-out of the Internet of Things, i.e. 5G, will lead to the doubling of knowledge every 12 hours. Now this is why, you know, in the Gospels it says what? Everything that is in the dark will be in the light. You will not be able to hide anything, because perfect knowledge is coming. And I am personally convinced that as this knowledge increases, we are getting more and more of the antediluvian record. That is the pre-flood record. More and more of this is coming out. And we're going to find, Stephen Ben Noon, he did a fantastic teaching on the 7 mountains of Antarctica and how those mountains comported with the prophecy in Hanok. Now, one of the things that he pointed out that I think is a critical teaching is that he said, look, those mountains are not exactly north-south. I mean, they're kind of tilted like this. Why? Because there's been an axis change on the earth. I wish people could, instead of getting myopic and saying, let's beat each up over whether the earth is flat or round, consider for just a couple of seconds that the earth has changed. The earth has changed. Isaiah talks about it, Enoch talks about it, Job talks about it. That the earth will shake on its foundations, and it will rebel in its orbit. It will do things that are not normal. And if we look at this thing, we really understand we have a cosmological view that is consistent with Scripture. You can't sit, you know, when I was in school, the universe is billions and billions. You know, the teacher would usually begin like this. Did you know that the sun is going to burn out? Oh, no! You know, all the 4th graders, you know, going apoplectic. But it won't happen for 100 million years, so you don't have anything to worry about. Right? You remember these discussions, right? And the universe is billions and billions of years old in order to accommodate the stupid, not even a theory, the stupid rhetoric of evolution, macroevolution. And they can't prove that even with billions and billions of years, so statistically it has to go to hundreds of billions of years, and then when that doesn't work, well, trillions of years. And if that doesn't work, well, it happened in another universe that was around for a couple of 100 billion years. Whatever it takes to justify something that is statistically impossible. However, what if the whole of creation is much shorter than that? Now when you see something happening, you see something happening in the heavens, that could have immediate implication. That could have immediate implication. Don't take the universe for granted. Okay, singularity. Now singularity, this was a term that Kurzweil kind of coined. And he said, look, singularity is when computers get self-awareness. Now, we're going to talk, let's talk about self-awareness. Let's get to it. The first self-awareness, Bereshith, Genesis 3, verses 6 and 7. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and the tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also unto her man with her, and he did eat, and the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. The eyes of both of them were open. Now we could get into the metaphysics of this and go for a long, long time. Because the chances are that before the fall, they were not in bodies of flesh. But when death came into the world, look, we go out into the universe and we're looking for life, we're looking for signs of life. But what is a sign of life if it's not a sign of death? At any rate, both of their eyes were opened. This is self-awareness. This was original singularity. All right, so internal self-awareness. I think, therefore I am. Or as we used to say in college, I stink, therefore I am, right? There's a perceptual level to this, this cogito ergo sum, right? But the truth is when we have self-awareness, I think, therefore I am, as one person I used to follow used to say, consciousness is axiomatic. If you disagree with that premise, feel free to argue, but no fair using consciousness to do it. Right? And so the idea that consciousness is axiomatic becomes a real difficult premise for somebody like Einstein. By the way, that wasn't his real name. At any rate, where Einstein is concerned, he said, energy equals matter times a constant squared. But that doesn't give us the whole equation. Where is life? It's neither energy nor matter. Where is truth? It's neither energy nor matter. There's a non-material existence. And more importantly, where is consciousness in that equation? So Mashiach says, you shall love Yah with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all of your mind. Right? So here we get Mashiach giving us the threefold premise of existence: energy, matter, consciousness. Consciousness, you see? Okay, self-awareness. Now, the question is, will an intelligence, an artificial intelligence, become self-aware? More importantly, will artificial general intelligence become self-aware? And will it become applied in its self-awareness? So here I was talking about some of the basic aspects of epistemology, which I sometimes teach, which basically you start with sensation, the five senses of touch, taste, smell, see, and hear. When the sensation is first understood, it is cognized. When the sensation is remembered, it is recognized or recognized. When it is identified by name, it is conceptualized. When the name is applied, it is contextualized. And applied contextualization is language. One of those languages is music. That's a language in and of itself. Okay? And I opened his mouth and his ears and his lips and began to speak with him in the Ivrit, in the tongue of creation. It is written in the book of Yov Helim, Jubilees, chapter 12, verse 26. The four skills of language, especially for you young people that are here, begins with listening. As my friend Ken Hutcherson used to say, 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen twice before you speak once, right? Listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So now if I can deprive you of reading and writing, I've cut off half of your language skill. If I've cut off half of your language skill, you cannot contextualize that which you have conceived. So let's see how we do it. You don't need pencil and paper anymore. Use your laptop. Use your smartphone. You don't need to know where you're going, where you live. Put the address in your GPS and follow your smartphone. So my kids, when they want to go downtown, they can't find downtown. For me, it's get on the freeway, go that way until you see some big buildings. Right? You know? I got to get my GPS finder out. Well, why don't you take the alternate route? The GPS says this is faster, Dad. Don't take the alternative route. I love taking the alternative route and then having GPS freak, you know. You need to make a U-turn. You know, I'm hoping for a GPS with Don Rickles. Look, you dummy, turn it around, you know. But we can't all get that lucky, right? We can't get that fortunate. It's like, you know, having Don Rickles at the U-scan counter at the supermarket, you know. Please scan your first item and put it in the bag. In the bag, moron, over there. Don't tell me you're trying to use that stupid debit card again. Yeah, there's lots of things that could happen, but you know, eventually we'll get to that. Maybe somebody will draft some comedy into this AI. But here we say, so these 4 skills of language become critically important when you can't read or write. And now what? We're not going to teach you cursive anymore. Who uses cursive? Who uses a pen and paper? Right? If we don't teach our kids cursive, then they won't be able to read the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution. They can only read what we put up, what Google puts up in the cloud. Now I want to ask you something. Did the cloud ever paint something like the Mona Lisa? Eh? No. Yeah, they try to bring out the robot. The robot is going to compose some music on the piano. Right? Yeah, thank you. If I wanted typing, I would have gone to a typing pool. Right? Robot's going to do this. You know, I heard a performance, Stephanie will tell you about this. We watched this performance, this gal named Dorota. And she was on some voice competition in Poland. Which, of course, who watches vocal competitions in Poland? You know, me, I'm not prone to do that. No, I happened to find this gal. And so she comes out and she's got 2 minutes to sing. And she sings this song, I'm Calling You. Calling You is the name of the song, Calling You. And this song is a very interesting song because the peak of the verse is just this chromaticism coming down, right? But she comes out to sing this 2-minute song, and in 2 minutes she brings the whole place to tears. All the judges, all the people in the back of the room that are, you know, working the stage, everybody's in tears over 2 lousy minutes of singing, right? And how is that performance capable of doing that? Because we're human beings, we're not computers. This is something that the people in Silicon Valley don't understand. When I get on the freeway, I'm not an electron on a microchip. Okay? You might think, and then, oh, hey, we're gonna put in self-driving cars. Yeah, have at it. You'll have a self-affecting traffic jam just like you had before. But here we go. You have in Scripture, in the Gospel of Mark, and he said, that which comes out of the man is that which defiles the man. For from within, out of the heart of men proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within and defile the man. Matthew 12, 36 through 37. But I say unto you that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment. For by your words you shall be justified, and by your words you shall be condemned. I didn't say it. But when we start talking about, look, we're talking about language, we're talking about how you think. Because ultimately what's going to happen for this group is ultimately we're going to walk away from technology. Okay? It's going to happen. We're going to walk away from technology. We knew this quite a while ago, which is why we published the Sefer in a book instead of making it only a digital download on a computer. Because we know that you're going to have something in your hand. Because when you walk away and you say, that's it, I don't want that cell tower around me, I don't want those, the electronics you have in your home right now, people don't know this. Your smart TV is a camera. It watches you 24 hours a day. Watch this. Yeah, that's a fact. Cell phone. Okay, right? Okay, Google, restaurants near me. Let's see. Boom. I have my phone off. Does that tell you anything? Your phone listens to you 24 hours a day.
I hope it likes snoring.
It has a program to actually depress that by using a Dolby noise simulator. No, I mean the point is that, and all of this stuff sits and resides in the cloud, right? They have this file of enormous data on you that they don't use until they want to use it. We're gonna call you the patsy for the next false flag. Then they feed a bunch of information onto your Facebook page. They do all this, do that, the other thing. Then they go and they hit download, and your entire profile goes. These illegal aliens, they have no idea, right? I do immigration. The aliens come in, I want to get asylum. Oh, do you? Well, let's go to your VK page and see what you had to say. Because when they get in front of the asylum officer has 100% of their social network right there. Right there. Well, funny, you said you were beat up in 2013. I show you at a party here in December of that year having a good time in your hometown where you said you can't live. Oh yeah, they have it all. All the data is there. So Yana did a great job on 5G. So I'm going to skip all this stuff. Low latency, high efficiency. Here's the key thing. Marcus Weldon, the CTO of Alcatel-Lucent comments. Lucent Technologies, right? Named after Lucifer. Up until now, we've designed the networks for people and their needs. Now we're designing it for things. You know what I told you yesterday? 55 milliseconds is the delay on your cell phone. So if somebody's calling you on your cell phone, they're speaking it, blah, 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 and less than a half a second later, you're hearing it. So if you were to actually see him talking, it would be like, one of those Chinese movies, where they're going, get him. That kind of a thing, right? But now it's going to be only 1 millisecond. Would you ever be able to tell the difference unless the person was standing right here in front of you? Never. Who can tell the difference? Driverless cars. Right? Speaking of that kind of stuff, you realize there's a protocol called Stingray, right? You ever heard of this? Stingray is something that the law enforcement uses, and they can use it anywhere in the country. Once they have your cell phone number, they use Stingray. They plug your cell phone number in, and your phone is live on their phone. Every text message, every phone call, your GPS location, all your photos on their phone. They regularly use it in Washington, even though it's illegal. But the Bellingham Police Departments use it. Tacoma uses it. Spokane uses it. Okay, let's get to the terrifying part of this presentation, the social credit score. Now, I'll tell you, there was a lot of bad things done to man in the 20th century. More people were killed by their own government in the 20th century than were killed in all of the brutal wars that happened in that century. Who were the top killers? Mao, 100 million Chinese dead. Stalin, 60 million Orthodox Christians dead. Hitler, 23 million dead. The United States of America, 40 million civilians. Nobody's talked about the genocide that's going on in South Africa and Southern Africa in the blood diamond trade, where there's already been 6 million genocided since 1996. You know the first person to raise the issue to the American conscience? Donald Trump in the December 21st, 2017 executive order, when he named the mafiosi that were doing it in Africa. And he also named the mafiosi who are trafficking in stolen organs. Oh, come on, let's talk about what's going on. People being trafficked so that they can do live harvesting of human organs for transplant. 89,000 children have disappeared in the United States of America over the last 10 years. Never to be found again. In the meantime, we know there have been child sacrifice rituals going on all over the world. Kevin Annett, in the International Tribune of Crimes of Church and State, proved with 44 witnesses in front of 21 judges that Pope Benedict, Queen Elizabeth II, the Archbishop of the Anglican Church in Canada, were responsible for the death of 55,000 children that were sacrificed. Canadian children, mostly indigenous peoples, taken from orphanages. Who cares about kids you pull out of Haiti, bring them to Washington, D.C. for a sacrifice ritual? Who cares? Who says anything? This is our country. We look in the Bible, we say, those foolish Israelites, they were so stiff-necked when they were taken out into Egypt. Have we stopped the child sacrifice in this country? Not one iota. And you know where it says it's appropriate to sacrifice a child up until the day before it's born? Talmud. That's the source of that concept. Talmud. And that is antithetical to Leviticus 17:11 that says, the soul of the flesh is in the blood. That baby has different blood than the mama. And the instant, look, a farmer will tell you, you got chickens? Yeah, I got chickens. How do you know when an egg is fertilized and when it isn't? Sight of blood. Leviticus 17:11 says, the soul of the flesh is in the blood. And because of that, we know that a soul in an independent blood type is present. Have we stopped it? No. Have we assured that our leaders had some sense of righteousness? Nebuchadnezzar said categorically in Daniel 4:11, Yah raises up the basest of people to rule over men. So if you want to ask who's going to win the next election, ask the question, which one of these people is the basest? And I'm not talking leave the bass player out of it, right? Okay. Social credit score. In place in China right now. Protocol written by Google, featuring an internet censored by Microsoft. And in China, you jaywalk, they have you on camera. They proved, of the 1.2 billion people in China, they can find you by facial recognition in 5 minutes. Any single person. They see you jaywalking, social credit score. You argued with somebody on a bus. You criticized the government. You watched an unapproved YouTube. You're watching Steve Bannon. Israeli News Live. Down goes the social credit score, right? When the social credit score starts to move down, hey, well, sorry, we're not going to lend you any money. You're cut off from being able to borrow money. Next, I'm sorry, you're not able to buy a plane ticket. Your social credit score is too low. I'm sorry, you can't get on a train. Your social credit score is too low. You can't take the bus. Your social credit score is too low. For that matter, your bank card no longer works. Your social credit score is too low. And when it gets low enough, I'm sorry, you can't rent an apartment. Your social credit score is too low. Now, I'm going to tell you what the next step is to the social credit system. Genocide. Now, while we're talking about that, let's talk about the defilement of America. The Russians knew all along back in the 50s. It said, here's the protocol for overthrowing the capitalist system in America. You have to demoralize them. Okay, so we talk about morality. People say, well, you can't legislate morality. Of course you can legislate morality. All legislation legislates morality. Because morality is what you do. What are the mores of this culture? Like, I'll give you an example. The freeway in Washington says 60 miles an hour. If you're in the left-hand lane, you drive between 65 and 69 miles an hour. Period. Or they'll run you off the road. So they may have a law that says 60 miles an hour, but the more is between 65 and 69. That's the morality. What the people do is the morality. So a culture is defined by how you marry and how you bury. Remember my big fat Greek wedding? It's talking about what? Here's how a Greek wedding goes down. You know, I've been to many Russian weddings. Here's how a Russian wedding goes down. I've been to many Jewish weddings. You know, the Jewish wedding is pretty cool. Why? Because there's a word in the Hebrew where it says, oh, he swore an oath to him. Actually, the word means he swore 7 oaths. He swore 7 oaths. And so at the Jewish wedding, the wife walks around the husband 7 times because she's swearing fidelity to him 7 times. She's swearing 7 oaths, right? Okay, but this is how you marry. But in America, look, we don't care how you married. We're the judiciary, and we're telling you how you're going to get married from here on out. I don't care who you are. Come in here, if there's 2 of you, I'll put on my black robe and sprinkle the dust on you, and you're married. Why? Because I've issued you a license. A license is given to you to do something you were otherwise prohibited from doing. So when did the state criminalize you being married outside the scope of the state? When they wanted to license it. And why did they want to license it? To determine who you could marry and who you couldn't marry. And once they told you, we're going to say who you can't marry, i.e. biracial marriages, which is why they licensed them. Now we can tell you who you can marry. So I was in the middle of the same-sex marriage battle in Washington. And I'm trying to say, look, marriage should be between a man and a woman because that's what the Torah says. And while I was arguing this, they put a front-page article out about this woman marrying this building. And so here is this guy who did the marriage, and he looked like he was half hippie, half rabbi. You know, so I call him the Habbi. And he's marrying this gal to the building. But I'll tell you, she was getting married to the building. But I can tell you in that photo, she was flirting with the backhoe. I'll tell you that right now. A bad situation. Anyway, here's the bad part of 5G. Mind control. Now, these experiments have been around for a long time, okay? They know the frequency of the human body, and by bombarding you with these frequencies, they can cause you to do things that they want you to do. Now, this shows kind of an old schematic about how they do it in terms of the microwaves and stuff, but when you have 5G, 5G is going to be a continuous environment of microwave. A continuous environment. You will not be able to escape it. You will be bombarded with a huge amount of microwaves. And in that, these are some of the things they can cause you to do. They can cause you to hear voices. They can cause blindness. They can cause involuntary reactions. They can stop breathing. They can stop your heart. Okay? Now, they talked about how 5Gs will cause unnatural arrhythmias, but with the right frequency pulse put through that system, they can stop your heart. So the long and the short of it is, they can execute whoever they want, whenever they want. More importantly, they can get you to do things, if you are not under the blood, they can get you to do things that you otherwise would not do. So when you see this kind of technology, you have to remember that once this is built out, the kind of government control that will be in place will be absolute and total. This is so far beyond George Orwell's 1984, it's not funny. It will be absolute and total. They will be able, like when Stalin was in power in Russia, he wrote the mayor of Yekaterinburg at one point, he said, I need 6,000 more dead this month. Just go kill 6,000 people. I don't care who they are, but I need 6,000 dead. The mayor of Minsk, Belarus was ordered, you, every weekend, you kill 250 people, pick them at random. He would pick 250 people, and they'd take them out in the woods and shoot them every Sunday. This will be, we've got too many people in San Francisco. I need 10,000 less by tomorrow morning. Run the program. These people had social credit score below this number. Execute. They're fried, they're dead. Go pick them up. How about that for an environment? Okay, let's cross the threshold. Transhumanism. Now, I'm going to say this to you when we get into this transhumanism portion. This is the end of this speech, but we get into transhumanism. Look, we had this big battle trying to keep marriage between a man and a woman in Washington. When we lost the battle in Washington, the whole dam collapsed. The water flooded worldwide. We lost the battle in Washington, quite frankly, because the Christian churches were so busy arguing with one another. They couldn't get together to vote. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. We had arguments about how many angels you could get on the head of a pin, and if you were 2 or more angels off, I rebuke you. Right? So what happened was, there was a non-discrimination clause in the law that was passed. Well, you can't discriminate against people. And people were like, well, those same-sex couples are just like everybody else. We don't want to discriminate against them. And they should have all the rights that everybody else has, so let's go ahead and pass the non-discrimination law. But it didn't just say same-sex couples, it said sexual orientation. And the Supreme Court, when it said let's have legalized same-sex marriage, reserved unto themselves 7 other layers of sexual orientation beyond LGBT. Now, what are those? I'm just a curious guy here. I want to know, what are those 7 other sexual orientations? Well, I can tell you what the court had in mind, protecting pedophilia. But there were some members on the court who wanted to make sure that Islam had a pass for things like forcible rape. Hey, that's sexual orientation, forcible rape. Eh? That's sexual orientation. Bestiality, that's got to be protected. Polygamy, that's got to be protected. We haven't hit 7 yet. We haven't hit 7. So what comes in immediately after that in Washington? Well, transgender bathrooms. Now, you guys should not be discriminated against transgender people. Okay, somebody who's really good at transgenderism, you're not going to know anyway. But what about the guy that wants to jump into a dress so he can go into the girls' locker room? Did that happen? You better believe it happened. Immediately it happened. Now California says, so I said, look, here's the response to that. You want to have transgendered bathrooms and so on and so forth? Fine. Let's have a law that says no bathroom shall exist in the state of Washington that can accommodate more than one person. It shall have a floor-to-ceiling door that locks. Now anybody can use it if they want. Oh, well, yeah, that costs too much money. Yeah, bingo. You can retrofit all the stadiums, all the auditoriums, and everything else because you wanted that stupid law. How about same-sex marriage? What percentage of the population do you think got married after we defiled the institution of marriage in this country? What was the population? Come on. You can look at the statistical record in Canada. It's been legal for 20 years. Look at the record in France. Look at the record in the Netherlands. Look at it. It's the same percentage in every place they've legalized same-sex marriage. The number, come on, what do you think the number is? Come on. The number is 0.0015. We had to destroy how America marries to accommodate the demand of 15 thousandths of 1% of the population. Right? Pretty important issue. I think I'd rather solve the problem of people getting struck by lightning, which has a higher statistical probability. Nonetheless, the transgenderism is the opening door to transhumanism. Because what is going on with transgenderism? I reject how I was created. Well, you were created male and female, he created them. Well, he may have created me as a male, but I reject that idea. Okay, you reject it. So I can transform myself. So it begins with clothing, which of course is prohibited by the Torah. But then you get into other stuff. Well, I want to be faster. And if I take these anabolic steroids, I can transform myself into being a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, a little bit quicker. If I do this, I can enhance that capability. If I put on this bionic whatever, I can move this way. All this stuff is a little bit of transhumanism. But when you cross the threshold to say, I want that chip in my brain, you've crossed over into transhumanism. So this guy at the conference, he asked everybody, he says, how many people favor becoming a cyborg? You know, having this intellectual capability put in their bodies. And the place, all being believers. None of us. Not any of us. 80% of the crowd was sitting there on their smartphone like this while they were doing it. Just a minute, I'll answer that. I've got to answer a few text messages here and do an email, check my Spotify, look at some photos on Instagram, and maybe shot Facebook. But other than that, I'm totally opposed to being a cyborg. Is that right? So here's our choices. Cyborg, part human, part Gaia. Or we can give the whole place over to Gaia. Now I can tell you, the people who are developing this stuff want the whole world to be the middle guy. We don't want you useless eaters. Look, there are robots out there right now that can do a backflip off this table. There are robots that can run through the woods, bipedal, run through the woods, the most difficult environment, run through it. You know, in just a few years, you're going to have this robot that's going to look really, really human, with self-healing skin, that can walk out to your car, pick up the front bumper and lift it up like this, go out to the freeway and tow it home, fix your house, fix your car. Not only that, they'll be able to speak 165 languages fluently. Thanks to 5G, they'll be able to download whatever search is going on in 1 millisecond. And they're going to know more about your smart house than you will. They'll know when you need more orange juice. They'll know when you haven't done the laundry. They'll know you're using too much electricity because you forgot to turn the heat down. It'll know all this stuff. And then pretty soon one day it's like, why am I wasting my time on this stupid hunk of flesh sitting here in this household? As it's computing 1,000 trillion times faster than you can think. Now, your third option, of course, is to be Robert Palmer. He's the human in this particular image. So, a couple of headlines here. New scientist, $100 million project to make intelligence-boosting brain implant. That's already underway. Is the U.S. Navy planning to implant people with microchips? Officials consult presidential candidate on merging humans and machines. Oh yeah, that's underway. That would be mandatory. You're in the Navy? Hey, get the chip. Remember when you had to go to Iraq, get the vaccine? You're gonna get the vaccine. Well, have you tested it? No. Well, can we wait for Saddam to deploy that particular nerve gas? No. Just take this tainted vaccine and see if you live through it. Now it's going to be take the chip. Mandatory. Humans with amplified intelligence could be more powerful than AI. Yeah, maybe. But AGI? That's another question. Brain implants could give people perfect memories and night vision. Look, I was talking to somebody about a pair of glasses. Let's talk about the next pair of glasses that's coming out. You know, perfect stereo sound out of the back here, going into the ears. These lenses are not lenses, they're actually screens. So this is viewing and giving me a visual of what I'm seeing, and it's giving you a visual of what you think you're seeing through my lenses. When you talk to me, you can talk to me in any foreign language, it immediately translates in this lens. You ask me any question, I immediately have the answer because my glasses are hooked up to a search engine that's immediately giving me the answer. I've got audio capability right here, I just talk into my lenses. Call so-and-so, my glasses call. Talk to such and such, send a text message to so-and-so, email such and such. All I have to do is speak it. I don't have to think anymore. I can get GPS location right here in my lenses. I can get night vision in my lenses. Equally important, I'm sitting around doing nothing, let's watch a movie. Sounds great, doesn't it? Who cares? Okay, nano brain implant. Another company. These are some of the things that's coming in with this transhumanism. So the moms are going to have the question. You know, I don't know what you guys have out here in Missouri or Missouri, depending on which state you're talking about. But in California, mandatory vaccines. So they said, you can't enter a public school without mandatory vaccines. So all the parents said, we're homeschooling. Boom, we're out. Bye, see you later. Well, now, wait a minute. We just passed a law making sure that the transgendered bathrooms tear down the stall walls. They tore down the stall walls in the bathrooms to make sure that the kids see each other going to the bathroom. Oh, absolutely. Look, you got to remember that California is the home of the fruits and the nuts. And they currently are in power. So, mandatory vaccines. So then the people say, well, we're going to homeschool. Okay, mandatory vaccines for homeschoolers. Any parent that doesn't vaccinate their child, go to prison. How about that? No college for any unvaccinated child. None. Now what happens when the next stage is mandatory chip implant? Now I want you to think about this. You have a 3-year-old. You're the mom. Mandatory chip implant to get into kindergarten. You put the chip in the child comes home and is computing at a rate 1,000 trillion times faster than you are. So in less than a month, the child's like, why am I talking to you again? What to do? Yahushua answered, you say that I am a king. To this end I was born. And for this cause came I into the world, that I should bear witness unto the truth. Everyone that is of the truth hears my voice. And Pilate said unto him, what is truth? Now that's a question, isn't it? What is truth? I can tell you AI is incapable of knowing the truth. It knows zeros and ones. It does not know the truth. The people who are controlling AI are God deniers. In fact, they're God haters. And they openly confess this to you. You might have some people on the periphery, like in the Masonic order, the guys that walk into the Shriner Park. We're doing good stuff, we're helping the kids. Well, did you know that your bosses are worshiping Lucifer upstairs? Oh, what? That can't be right. Yeah, that's right. Same thing that goes on the computer. You got guys that are working on the ground floor, they're writing a little code, doing a little this. The guys upstairs, in the meantime, are trying to create devices into which demons can dwell. So what advantage do we have? We have the capability of knowing the truth. How do you know the truth? By the testimony of 2 or more witnesses who are telling the truth. So we have this little question. Aristotle said, A, therefore A. It's called modus ponens in logic. A, therefore A. Well, that gives you consistency, right? If I say a car, therefore a car. Okay, that's consistent, but is it true? It's only true if in fact that's a car. If I hold this up and say a car, therefore a car, I'm sorry, that's a laptop. Not true. Because the proposition A, therefore A, is incapable of deciphering the truth. But compare that to the claim that's made in the burning bush to Moshe. Who shall I say sent them? Ayah Asher, Ayah is who sent you. I will be that I will be. That's not just a logical claim of consistency, it is a claim of truth. It is written, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And Mashiach said what? I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Now look, the Christian church. Hey, we got the life, man. We're good to go. I made an altar call 22 years ago. I got my fire insurance. I got the life. I'm good to go. I asked the question, what about the way? And what about the truth? Because when you get out of bed, you're going to put a foot down and you're going to walk in one direction. One leads to the narrow path. The narrow path has a wall of fire on one side and an ocean of water on the other, and there's 200-mile-an-hour winds blowing on it. Few find it and few can stay on it. But he said, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. If it doesn't come through that, it's false. That's it. I have nothing more to say. Thank you. Are you ready, Stephen? Okay, we're gonna take a few minute break here while we're getting prepared. So, thank you all.